And I think that in the world of AI, you have people who think AI is going to take over the world. I believe that it's going to be a combination of AI and HI, human intelligence.
Welcome back to Growth Under Pressure. I'm your host, Eric Josovitz. Today I'm joined by CFO Darryl Baker. Darryl is a brilliant CFO. He has experience in the healthcare industry, taking companies public, and he's just an awesome guy. Darryl, thanks for joining.
Thanks, Eric. It's great to be here with you today.
Darryl, tell me about your background. What made you jump into finance?
Oh man, that's a long story. I'll try to give you the brief version, but we may have to dig a little bit deeper on that a little bit later. But so I'm going to say I was inspired by my father, who at an early age he said, I think you have an aptitude for numbers. I think you'd be good at that. And I think he was inspired by my uncle. His name was Jack. My uncle Jack Dahl. And my uncle Jack was a public company CFO. He had started his career at Arthur Andersen and had taken a company called Fleetwood Enterprises public this was way back in the 1960s. And I remember my father had invested in Fleetwood with my uncle Jack, and that turned out to be a fairly successful investment. And so my dad said, what your uncle Jack does I think is pretty cool, and I think you'd be good at that too. And so I think that was the early inspiration. I also have an older brother and a younger brother. So out of the four boys that my parents had, three of us went into finance and accounting. So.
Wow. My parents always used to tell me that accounting was the best career to go into because accountants always have jobs.
I mean, I believe there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
Do you have your accounting degree or is it a finance degree?
I do. That's my background. I started my career in public accounting with Ernst Young in Los Angeles, where I'm from. Did about 5 years on the audit track. Was an audit manager at Ernst Young when and of course I got my CPA along the way, and then which really was kind of I viewed that experience, EY and public accounting. It was kind of like for me it was like an MBA, right? I mean, I got exposure to a lot of different companies. I was fortunate to be a part of what they called the entrepreneurial services group at that time. So I felt like I had the best of both worlds there, being part of a, international, one of the largest firms in the world, yet spending my time with these early stage entrepreneurs that were, had big visions and were ready to take their companies to the next level. And so it was a great foundation for my career, and but it was never the intention to stay in public accounting for the long term. But I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to have that as a career foundation.
Did you have aspirations to be a public CFO from watching your uncle to the early days being in school? Was that always a goal for you?
I would say probably, yeah. I really do. I think it was because of, how I had seen my uncle and his career path. And, it's interesting. I could probably parallel my path a little bit to his path, um, you know, 40, 50 years after him. So yeah, I would say that was always kind of the objective.
That's impressive. How does, for our viewers out there that want to get to that CFO level or even climb to the C-suite, do you have a proven formula, or is there certain steps that you took in your career that got you to that level?
I think, Eric, honestly, you have to have the technical capability, right? You have to be technically competent. You have to understand business. But I really think that the interpersonal skills are what really carries the day. The ability to work with people, to understand people, to interact, and to get the most out of your people and your team, I think is really what develops people from a, say a good, FP&A professional or a good accounting professional, whatever the foundational background is. But that's what propels you to the next level is the ability to really interact and lead people. Um, so that's been my experience, and that's what I would say I think is, for someone that has that kind of aspiration, really focus on your interaction with people and how it is that you um, can inspire and motivate, lead, and understand, right, what's going on. I do think obviously the world has changed. It has changed a lot. It continues to change. I do think that AI is going to be a huge component, and I got to say, I think we're in the early stages of that, and so I'm not sure I have a great answer for how that evolves in the world of AI, but there I do believe there's going to be a component of really understanding AI, how AI works, and how you can leverage that technology to your advantage.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I appreciate that background. It seems like AI will be a component of the technical aspect and may um, arm those maybe introverts or less interpersonal folks out there that might just be behind the closed door. It might boost them up and get their communication skills up that would push them into that C-suite. But you're absolutely right. It's a found it and hats off to you because you have to be an expert on the technical side and then you have to be an expert at the communication. It's like you're a translator. It's the ones that get to that level are the ones that can translate the technical know-how better than the others.
I think that's absolutely right. You're spot on with that, Eric. I do really view a lot of what, as a finance professional, CFO, a lot of what we're doing is translating, right? We're taking interpreting information and then making it usable for our employer or for our client. Um, and again, you have to be able to understand what's going on technically in order to be able to interpret that and make it usable for your client. But to me, that's really the value that the CFO at the end of the day brings. And I think that in the world of AI, I mean, you have people who think AI is going to take over the world. I believe that it's going to be a combination of AI and HI, human intelligence. You still have to have humans that understand what the AI is producing and then be able to ultimately help steer the decision making based on what is coming out of that AI.
Yeah, because a lot of it has to do with risk tolerance, and of course AI can, of course over time its risk tolerance will get better and better, but having that gut feel, I think a good CFO or a great CFO can help you go, grow the company more linear versus exponentially and take the company public based on the CFO's risk tolerance as well. It's not just the CEO. Um, so yeah, there's a lot to unpack on the AI side, and you're right. There's some AI out there that can do the FP&A work, but there's a lot on the strategic side that we don't know where it's going to be.
That's exactly right. So it is, I think it's a very exciting and interesting time. Not just in the world of finance, but in the world in general. I really, I think it comes through. I'm a big believer in the power that AI has the potential that it has for tremendous productivity and for great good. I think, like with any technology, it also has potential to cause harm. And I do think that it's going to be important for our society to really figure out how to leverage the tool for good and how to effectively minimize the risk of damage and harm.
That's perfectly said. And I'd love to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more on it. Let's fast forward to today. I want to build
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
how you started. Give us a quick snapshot of what you're doing these days and what life is like in Arizona.
Sure, yeah. I'm currently based in Scottsdale, Arizona. I spend my time as a fractional CFO. I have a number of clients and projects that I work on. I really enjoy the variety of the types of situations that I find myself in professionally. And most of all, I just enjoy working with my clients, helping my clients solve problems, and just interacting with great people. At the end of the day, that's what brings me the joy, is just being able to be around great people and to help people solve big problems.
That's great. The fractional CFO industry is another one that's just been booming and increasing over time. The ability to connect with multiple small businesses, and of course, allowing small businesses to get a CFO at a smaller level. Is there a particular client or um, company that you're working with right now um, that's growing, fast growing, or you know, one that you're working with that's interesting?
Sure, yeah, let me share eh, one of my favorites that I've been working with here for the past almost the past year is a company called Anuncio Medical. It's a small medical device company, and the device that is currently FDA cleared and on the market is called Reflow Mini. And what it does is it helps people who have hydrocephalus, which is excess fluid on the brain. It helps them manage their hydrocephalus by ensuring that the shunt that is placed in their brain, which is the standard of care for treating hydrocephalus, a neurosurgeon will basically drill a hole in the skull, insert a shunt, which is like a straw, and drain that fluid into the abdomen. The fluid, your cerebrospinal fluid it's gunky. It's not clear like water. It has all kind of coagulant material, blood, all other kinds of material in there, and so it's not uncommon for these shunts to clog or occlude. And what the Annuncia device does, it inserts in line to the catheter that goes into the brain, and it allows the patient or the caregiver to basically flush the shunt using the patient's own CSF, and it just keeps that shunt flowing, which significantly reduces the need for revision surgery on these shunt cases. And so I love this one, right? Because we're having a direct impact on the lives of people. A lot of these patients that have been implanted with the Reflow Mini are pediatric cases, infants. And so it's just a great blessing for for them and for their families to be able to keep their shunts functional so that these infants don't have to go in for multiple revision surgeries. It's also a great, from an economic standpoint, it's a great cost save to the U.S. healthcare system by minimizing the number of revision surgeries. So I really love Annuncia Medical. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. And I assume you're doing strategy with them. Did they have some fundraising that you helped out with? What's kind of their growth? And of
Yeah,
course, you can share whatever's publicly available.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, actually, the company is in the middle of a Series A fundraise, and so I really enjoy that. Right, helping raise the capital for the business. The uh, the round, it's a $6 million round. The company has raised about 4 million against the 6 million, so we've got about 2 million to go, and so we're actively out looking for purpose-driven investors that like investing in early stage, um, healthcare type companies that are making a difference in the world. So it's a lot of fun. I would, as kind of an adjunct to Annuncia, I also serve as a board member for another medical device company. And both of these companies are based in Scottsdale, by the way, where I live. The other is called NeoLight, and NeoLight also is in the neonatal care space. It has products that help caregivers take care of infants that have jaundice, which is a very common condition for newborns. Also, they have a diagnostic that helps ophthalmologists treat what's called retinopathy of prematurity for premature babies that to make sure that their vision is okay. So those are great products. The kind of the fun thing about being on the board of NeoLight is that actually the lead investor in NeoLight and my fellow board member is a gentleman by the name of Ben Roethlisberger. So if you're a football fan at all, you might have heard of Big Ben Roethlisberger, and it's a lot of fun to work with Ben on that one too.
Yep, I've heard of him. I'm a big football
Yeah.
fan. Of course, he's had a really strong career in the NFL. So I'm very familiar with jaundice and the treatment behind it for newborns. My third baby, and I have three kids. You have six. I'm sure you're familiar with that as well. But yeah, my daughter, she's now 2 years old. She came out. She had the discoloration, and they were like, we're gonna put her under the light, and it's the cutest thing because they wear like these little mini goggles or like eye cover, and just stay under a light until they get better. And I'll share this story quickly, but we had a run-in with the nurses and the doctors because they came and they said, hey, we need to keep her longer, and she had improved. They were like, well, the chart is showing that she's not, there quite yet. And we're like, okay, show me the chart. I'm in finance. I've looked at a few graphs in my career, and the pediatrician comes back, shows me the graph, and she's just like above where she needed to be. And we were like, my wife and I just said, look, we're leaving. Like, we're not.
It's
There's
time to
also
go.
the other side of the healthcare system that a lot of people see, which is the money side of things. And there was some pushback, and after she showed me the graph and I told the nurses and them threatening to get the cops to not let us leave, they were like, look, you guys can go. She's good. She's fine. But I love hearing that you're working on those kind of things because those are, it's a big need. There's a lot of newborns with jaundice.
Indeed. And I would say if you had the NeoLight Skylife device, you would have been able to immediately taken that child home with a Skylife device and gotten the treatment you needed at home. And that's another thing I love working on, especially in the healthcare system, solutions to problems that help create efficiency in the system and help eliminate, reduce waste in the healthcare system, and of course reduce costs and create better outcomes for patients and their caregivers and their families. So I will say, right, again, there was no way I could have ever been a doctor. I get squeamish at the sight of my own blood, but I really, because sometimes you don't think about how being kind of behind the scenes, running the numbers, but it has an impact. It really does have a direct impact on the business and on the system as a whole. So again, I just love being around these people, trying to help solve problems, make society better, and and just be a part of things that really impact people's lives in a positive way.
Well, you're definitely doing God's work, and you're doing some great work out there. And someone behind the scenes that's doing that in the medical and healthcare industry can see how AI can improve, the damage, the costs, all the nuances behind the scenes. And I always say that AI can just improve, find more cures, more possibilities. And I'm sure you agree, but what are your thoughts on AI for healthcare?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, we could go on and on, but there is so much potential in leveraging AI to solve big health problems. Again, because so much of it is data, it's data, 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 data. And interestingly, one of the things that as Annuncia is commercializing its Reflow Mini, doctors are very data driven, right? They want to say, hey, this sounds great. I want to use it in my patient, but show me the data. Like, prove to me that this actually makes the impact that you claim that it does. And so having that data and being able to leverage, interpret it, and utilize it that way is very, very powerful. I think that again, but the AI in and of itself is not going to do it on its own. You still have to have knowledgeable, competent people who can interpret that data. Even though AI will do a great job of summarizing it, but making sure that the data is being used correctly. But there's so much potential in drug development, in so many areas to leverage AI. It's just like we could go on for days and days on this, honestly.
The last thing I'll add to that is, from my experience, and I have finance healthcare experience as well, not like you, but there's always an issue with data, whether it's storage, speed, finding the insights in the data, the trends, which is a whole nother story. But when you have that kind of machine behind you, it just accelerates not only insights but time, right? Like, you can find out much faster what's going on behind the scenes, and in the operations, and the results of the care, or that the actual tools or technology is providing.
Yes, indeed.
So I want to, this is usually when we ask about the, growth under pressure moment, that time in your career where you had, and I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, really dark moment. If there's one or two stories you'd love to share with us, what was that growth under pressure moment for you?
Wow. And Eric, you and I have talked a little bit about this. I was the CFO for a company called Insys Therapeutics. We took Insys, which is a specialty pharmaceutical company. We took Insys public in 2013, so about 12 years ago. And at the time in 2013, Insys was the top performing IPO on the NASDAQ, listed on the NASDAQ that year. So it had a great kind of a meteoric rise after having gone public. Insys had two FDA approved products. One was a compound called dronabinol. Dronabinol is a synthetic form of THC, which is the chemical compound found in marijuana. Dronabinol was used to treat chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting. Specifically, that was the indication for that medication. And dronabinol is a compound that's been around for many years. Insys was focused on coming up with a better delivery mechanism for dronabinol. And that's kind of how the company was born. Uh, After having gotten dronabinol onto the market, the company the founder of the company had an experience where his wife was going through a cancer treatment. And so he was experiencing life as a caregiver to his wife and observing that there was a lot of pain involved in her cancer journey, involved in her treatment. And he was frustrated that there was not a solution, a good solution on the market that he could see that could be used to kind of help manage and treat her pain. And as a result of that, because we were in this mode of developing existing molecules, so not formulating new drugs, but how could we take existing compounds and deliver them more effectively? And so he had the idea that that fentanyl, which is a commonly used pharmaceutical medication, been used by anesthesiologists safely and effectively for probably 80 years or more, could be delivered via a sublingual spray. Via a device that you basically lift your tongue and you spray the compound under the tongue, which absorbs into the bloodstream very quickly, right? And creates a situation where the patient can experience significant pain relief very, very quickly. So of course, this sublingual spray of fentanyl went through FDA approval, went through phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials, was approved by the FDA in 2012, and was actually the sixth product of its kind in the class. So there were 5 other transmucosal immediate release fentanyl products on the market, which is what the category was called. Anyways, so Subsys was a great product, and it took off like gangbusters. We had very, very rapid uptake. Revenues were, basically went from zero in 2013 to by 2015, we were doing over 300 million annual in revenue off of that one product. And then what started to happen in this, I'm going to say 2015, 2016, is there became this kind of broad consciousness in the marketplace about opioid abuse and the danger of opioids, and specifically with respect to the danger of fentanyl as a highly potent opioid. The dangers that were being highlighted were not necessarily with respect to prescription fentanyl, but with respect to illicit fentanyl that had started coming into the country illegally. Of course, as a marketer of a highly potent opioid, fentanyl, that attracted a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention at that time. And so, a lot of questions arose about, how and why was it that this particular product had such a meteoric rise, and it fed into this kind of narrative of in general, pharmaceutical sales and marketing tactics and practices. And so Insys got caught up in that in a big way. The US DOJ came in, launched an investigation. Ultimately, there was a fine, a huge DOJ fine that was levied against the company, which ultimately caused the company to go bankrupt. And again, because of all of the scrutiny around selling and marketing practices for opioids in particular, several of my former fellow colleagues ended up becoming criminally convicted, which was highly unusual. And in fact, was the first time that a CEO of of a pharmaceutical company was criminally convicted. So that was a very, very dark experience and time. And the darkest part of that for me was honestly that we as a company we believed we were helping people who were experiencing breakthrough cancer pain find relief to their pain in a safe and effective way. And somehow that got twisted into a narrative that suggested that we were nothing more than illicit fentanyl dealers on the street. And so that was really, really, really hard to go through and to watch it play out. Personally, I mean, I was very close to my former colleagues that ended up going to jail, and I was so close to it that there were a lot of sleepless nights, honestly, wondering if the authorities at some point might come knocking on my door. Fortunately for me, that did not happen. I was not brought into any of those, questions. And so I can hold my head high all the way through that I was, honest, fair dealing, straight up, never ran into any personal uh, legal problems with the government in terms of any criminal. But it was a very, very, very dark and hard time in my career, and really caused me to question a lot of things, right? Like, am I really, am I biased in a certain view on this? Maybe is there something to kind of the government's position on how the company has conducted itself with respect to how it's marketed and sold these products? So I really had to ask some very, very deep, pondering questions. Um, and that was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It felt like, wow, I never imagined myself having to go through something like that at that level in my career.
Wow, that is absolutely a growth under pressure moment, and a rough time would be a huge undertaking. And you know, as a dad of six, husband and father, your kids see who you are, you influence them. So of course, you know, having that communication and the dialogue with them that like, hey, I'm over here trying to do better for the world. We have a treatment that is needed, but of course it's being used improperly. And then I'm sure you had plenty of people that were going after the company that were saying terrible things. And of course there's some truth to say that maybe some of it was getting out and used improperly. But what were the conversations like with your family at the dinner table during that time?
That is a great question. By the time this was going on, I had, I'm going to say my old three, my two oldest kids were already in college, so they were off to school. But obviously they could observe from afar. My four younger children were still at home, and we did have a lot of dinner time conversation around the table about, you know, um, how sometimes things in life aren't always what they appear, how critically important it is to always maintain your honesty and your integrity, um, how important it is, and I really I learned this, I think, a very hard way through that experience, is how the people that you associate with can have such an impact on you, either for good or for bad. And I'm not suggesting that the people that I was associated with at Insys were necessarily bad people. I still, to this day, even though several of them ended up serving time, they were criminally convicted. I have had the opportunity to visit with some of those people post them having served their criminal sentences. And so obviously their lives have been much more impacted by that experience than mine. But the how important it is to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good people that are helping you to be the best person that you can be, and to just be honest. Just be honest. That ultimately the company got in trouble because there were some people who were dishonest, and who did certain things that put the company in a very bad situation. And unfortunately, right, at the highest level of leadership in the company, they ended up paying the price for people downstream who didn't do what they were supposed to do the way they were supposed to do it. And listen, that's a risk in life in general in dealing with people. Not everybody is going to do it the right way all the time, every time. But I really, again, at that time, most of my kids were teenagers. They were high school age. And it was a lot of the conversation was around make sure you're surrounding yourself with really, really good people that are going to help you be your best self.
All right, Darryl. So we've talked a little bit about the conversations at dinner time, how that was with your family, but then tell me a little bit more about the relationship with your coworkers, with the CEO and the other member that was criminally convicted. I know you've had some conversations with them. What was it like after the fact?
Yeah, Eric, that was a very, very tense situation, right? Having to be around these people that were going through very, very hard personal um, situation. And again, not, you kind of question, right, whether or not these people are who you thought they were. Um, so yeah, and I think there was a lot that was going around, right, with everyone. It just kind of created an environment of where, trust had been broken, and it's impossible to function in any kind of situation where that trust is broken. So yeah, it was very, very hard.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of learning experiences here. Of course, being a father of six, influence is such a big aspect of what you bring to them, and seeing you, of course, growing to a public CFO is huge influence. So, and the other thing is the people you surround yourself with are the people that you become. So, like, it's not always good influence. Sometimes the bad influence is positive. They can see what not to do, right? Um, but I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Was there anything that you learned? Do you have any? I don't like to throw around the word regret, but do you have any regret, or if you could go back and change the way you did things, would you do it differently?
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the one thing I look back on that, and I would say probably that I could have been better at in that situation was maybe not being as trusting as I was. And which is really hard for me, right? Like I really want to believe that people are who they, how they represent themselves is who they are. And I should have probably been a little more skeptical about some of the things that were happening, and maybe have been a little more adamant or forceful in um, you know questioning and asserting uh, greater leadership in terms of, hey, we probably ought to rethink how we're doing some of this, especially in the selling and the marketing side of the business. So yeah, that is and again, I don't like the word regret either. That was a learning experience that I had coming out of this. But as so many negative situations, right? There's a lot of beauty that can rise from the ashes, right, of the fire, and I found that in my life and in my career, right? It is really, again, I think it has helped focus me and steer me on a purpose, a vision, a mission for how it is that I can help humankind, and help try to help make the world a better place. I would say that's always been a focus for me, but now more than ever is really what drives me, and not just in again my close sphere, meaning my own family, those people that are close to me, but on a much broader scale, like how can we help make the world truly a better place? but I learned so much from that experience, and it did feel like in the middle of it, wow, like this is terrible and it's never going to end. The main takeaway I have from it is if you're going through something hard, um, it's it's going to end. And it's going to get better. Uh, I'm really blessed. I have my mother. She's 94 years old, and she's doing great. And she just has that wisdom of a 94-year-old. And every time I visit with my mother, she just says, "It'll all work out." And you know what? She's right. It'll all work out.
Yeah. Well, now you have the resilience playbook. I want to talk about the rebuild. And you're right. We had a podcast guest. He's an ex UFC fighter, Rohan Jucon Carnero, and he always says, the sun always comes up, and that's so true. So talk to me about. I know you're doing some volunteering these days, and you serve on boards. You're working with good companies that are providing amazing tools to save lives. Tell us a little bit more about the rebuild after, post those dark days.
Excellent, Eric. And I'm going to take this in a direction that I'm going to throw you for a loop here a little bit. We started this conversation about like, how did I get into doing what it is that I do? And I told you how I was influenced by my father. Um, my parents adopted me as an infant. Um, and I'm very fortunate to have been raised in such a great family. My parents are amazing human beings, and have been so impactful in my life. But while I was going through this dark phase, I had an urge or a need to meet my biological father, um, and was not something that I necessarily had anticipated. I had met my biological mother earlier in my early 20s, so I had known her for years. But I just had this situation where I was like, I need to connect with my biological father. So I did. I connected with him. And when I met him, I learned that he also had a path in finance and accounting. He had started his career at Arthur Andersen. And so it was amazing when we met and connected. And I had this moment of realizing that my father, who adopted me and raised me, who is my father, by the way, um, I think he knew. He knew what my biological father did, and I think for that reason he probably steered me in the direction that he had. And so fast forward, I've had the opportunity not only to reconnect with my biological father, but I've also had the opportunity to work with him professionally on some projects, which has really been a tremendous blessing in my life to get to know him, to connect with him, to get a greater sense of who I am, where I come from, why I am the way that I am, and to just really enjoy uh, getting to spend time with him on a purely professional basis has just been a great joy in my life for about the last 8 years. And I've got a couple of projects that I'm working with him right now as we speak, which is really a lot of fun and a great joy.
That's amazing. That truly is full circle. So just quickly talking about your childhood, was there something that your father that raised you did, or was there something that, you had inside you, some behavior, or, starting a business, or, doing financial modeling at 6 years old? We know that that's not the case, but was there something that kind of was like that spark, or something that got you to where you are today?
I was blessed to have, parents who came from a generation. My parents are from the silent generation, I guess they're called, and there aren't very many of them left, pre-baby boomer generation, just hardworking, great, salt of the earth people. My father was he was a farmer, a rancher in Canada. He left Canada as a young man, moved to California. He used to say to me the greatest thing that ever happened to me was him leaving Canada and getting me out of there, which he did. Not that Canada's bad. I think Canada's an amazing place. I have a ton of family there, but I was so blessed to have been adopted by my parents, to be raised in Southern California, to have been given every opportunity for education, for growth, development, and just to be taught and raised by people who are just salt of the earth, great people.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Well,
Yeah,
Canada could use your help as well. Their healthcare system's a little bit broken. I feel like
you could say that. Yes.
it's rough.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up. I want to do a quick rapid fire close with you. Just three questions. Number one, what's that one metric you check every single week without fail?
Oh my gosh. For my clients, it's cash is king. So the metric that I'm tracking for all of my clients is what is the cash position and what's the forecast for the cash for the coming 13 weeks. That's what I'm looking at every at least once a week.
It's
Cash
so
is
funny
king.
because I
Cash
expect to
is king.
hear, yeah, I expect to hear LTV or CAC or payback period or all these metrics, and I always hear cash. All right.
Yep.
Uh, can you recommend a book, a podcast, or a speech um, that is just a solid go-to for founders or CFOs under pressure?
Oh my gosh. So the podcast that I really enjoy in that realm is Guy Raz, How I Built This. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but Guy, he has great entrepreneurs who get to tell their story. I really, really enjoy listening to founders and their journeys, and how Guy Raz handles that on How I Built This is one of my favorites. Um, in terms of a book, I'm currently in the middle of a book about AI written by one of the early developers of AI, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't know the title of the book. I'll have to look it up, Eric, and get it back to you. I will send it to you. But I just started reading this book again to educate myself on AI and its early origins. So that's one that I'm into right now. Yeah.
Okay, we'll link it in the show notes once you send it over.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
everyone wants to learn more about AI, but the podcast is a solid one. It's one I don't listen to enough. On okay, last question for you. A CFO under pressure should always.
The CFO under pressure should always stay calm. Stay calm. Don't get overly emotional. Don't get I use the analogy again. I'm fortunate I get to interact a little bit with a former NFL quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. But a kind of a motto I have is stay in the pocket. Don't get happy feet. Trust that that offensive line is going to protect you and you're going to be able to execute the play. And sometimes the play does break down, right? And so you have to be able to adjust and adapt to that. But it's part of that. Just kind of stay calm, right? Observe what's going on around you. Don't get overly emotional. Don't freak out. Just stay calm. Stay in the pocket.
That's really good. And if you get sacked, there's always another play, right?
That's exactly right. You will get up and you will be able to run another down.
Awesome. Darryl, this was a ton of fun. Really appreciate you sharing your story and your background. I can't wait to continue it.
Great. It's been great visiting with you today, Eric. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Till next time. Thanks, Darryl. That's it for today's episode of Growth Under Pressure. I'm Eric Josovitz from Adapt CFO, and I hope these insights help you tackle your biggest scaling challenges. If you want to help other founders find the show, Give us a quick follow or a share. Thanks for listening, and I hope to catch you next time.